Welcome to Start Local, where we talk with business owners, leaders of nonprofits, and other members of our community focused on doing business in and around Chester County, Pennsylvania. Each episode will provide insight into the local business scene and tell you about opportunities to connect with and support businesses and nonprofits in your local area.
The Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce promotes trade, commerce, industry, and sustainable economic development while supporting a diverse and growing marketplace. The Chamber is proud to partner with the Start Local podcast to raise the profile of businesses and nonprofits throughout Chester County. Learn more about the Chamber at sccc.com. That's sccc.com.
Hey. Welcome to the Start Local podcast. I'm Liam Dempsey, and I am here in our recording studio today with my friend and co-host, Eric Goodmanson. Eric, greetings, friend.
That's me. How are you doing today, Liam?
I am very well today. Thank you, sir. I am very well. It's bright and sunny, and I'm liking that a lot. It's good to see the sun in the sky. I'm grateful that it's still there for many, many reasons. So before we get started, I feel like we do have to share this, Eric, that Eric is having some tree work cleanup done around his home today, and we may hear chainsaws in the background. And it's not because there's another massacre movie being filmed, but it's just guys getting the job done for him. So if you hear that in the background, that's what's going on. The studio is not under attack. We're just having some maintenance work done.
Be nice if we could have a chainsaw or chipper shredder come in right on cue, but of course Murphy's Law dictates it will come in at the worst possible times. That's just the nature of live recording, folks.
Yeah, good luck with the mute button, Eric. Good luck with the mute button. Folks, today we are absolutely thrilled to welcome Hendrik-Jan Francke. He is the owner of Bright Orange Thread. Welcome, Hendrik-Jan. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Very cool to be here, even with trees problems.
Hendrik-Jan, I've known you for many years between Tech Forum of Delaware and all your marketing services at Bright Orange Thread. So thank you for all that over the years. And it's a pleasure to talk a little bit more in detail today.
Cool. Very cool.
So before the chainsaw start, let's jump in. And for folks listening, the bulk of our conversation is going to focus around community-based learning. And we'll explore that in more detail as the conversation progresses. But to kind of center our conversation, we're gonna tell you a little bit about Hendrik-Jan and his business. Hendrik-Jan, you are the founder and owner of Bright Orange Thread, and that's a user-focused digital marketing agency. You work with family-owned businesses to help them grow. So the question is this: tell us about the work that you perform with your clients. What are you doing for them?
In my 30 seconds pitch, I always talk about helping them end their random acts of marketing. Because we're helping those family-run business. Maybe they have 5, maybe they have 20 employees, but they're coming to us because some of their tactics aren't working. And the very first thing we're going to do, very much on a marketing program, is lay the foundation a little bit. Who are the clients that bring them profit? Who are the clients that bring them joy? And when we can do that, when we can sort out who their ideal client is, then we can figure out what tactics are likely to work. We can figure out what messaging is likely to work. And then we're going to help them execute the strategy into the tactics and make that a fruitful opportunity for growth for them.
Staying with your client work at Bright Orange Thread, we opened by sharing that you focus your services on family-owned businesses. How did you identify that niche as the right area for you to dive into?
A lot of small decisions over time is really what it comes down to. In the early days, you took business to have enough revenue to cover payroll from time to time. But then in working with what we're going to talk about later with the mastermind group, I learned how to be a little more financially astute, more organizationally smart about what I'm doing. And also working on my own pipeline and sales process allow me to start to look at my client list. Where's the profit coming from? But then I don't recall exactly when and where, but okay, where's the fun coming from, right? Where's the people you enjoy having a monthly meeting with? You don't mind calling them up to follow up on things. So over time, I figured out these are family-run companies, the CEOs of these family-run companies. So I very much focus all my marketing and messaging on attracting those types of businesses. admittedly, we've tracked a few folks outside that lane, but they're really in the adjacent lane. But I don't work for the Fortune 500. I don't work for restaurants because there's certain firms that just aren't the right fit for us in certain ways. We tend to work for clients whose lifetime value of their clients is like north of $10,000. So $10,000 at a restaurant over 5 years would be a lot for one family to spend. But if you're buying propane for the winter, 5 winters in a row, you're easily spending, that $10,000 or more. So yeah, that's how I got there. Lots of small decisions over time.
Yeah, I like that. But before you got into starting your own agency, owning it as well, you were an assistant professor of art in the Department of Fine Arts and Visual Communications at University of Delaware. As I understand it, you taught courses in portfolio preparation, advanced graphic design, interactive media design, graphic design, and I expect probably a little bit more that didn't quite make your old resume or LinkedIn profile.
Right.
So if you had to narrow it down, Hendrik-Jan, to just one single item, and I appreciate this can be a difficult question, what is a single most fulfilling thing that you found about teaching design at that university level?
Well, teaching overall and working with students as bright as the University of Delaware attracts and as hardworking as the students going through visual communications are, there's that big picture that was really great. The one thing, though, I think my favorite semester, let's say, was probably fall of senior year. I've already had them for 4 semesters straight. This is their 5th semester. This is the start of the portfolio class. And it's when they really are stepping out into their own. They're shaping a portfolio where they want to go someplace very specific with it. And I can remember a few students where, I can help in this way very specifically. Being very proactive on certain areas of helping them choose the right kind of projects. But for some other students, it might have been actually figuring out how to step out of the way and ask, did you think this through kind of questions, just help them stay a little bit organized versus completely scattered. But that was always so much fun when they got into that mode. And there's just so many of them I can think about. They're so different, Brooke versus Andrew. They're so different in terms of the life experiences and what they were doing. But it was phenomenal to watch. That was just really neat to watch those kids get ready to go out in the real world with their real own ideas. I mean, kids with real ideas about what they want to do. It's a lot of fun.
As I think about all the CEOs I know, many of them started in sales, but you were an educator and a designer before you opened your own company. So what made you decide to open your own business, Bright Orange Thread? And I'm also curious, how did you get its name? Because I remember that story ties into your educational roots as well.
So how did we get our name? I decided to leave the university. So this is like a year and a half out. I think it was like a homecoming weekend, but in the spring, and they all show up on Monday in class and they got nothing. And it was supposed to be critique day and they had nothing. And if I'd known better, I would have realized that, right? If this was, I'd had a lecture or something. So I said, well, okay, I've been trying to rename my company and I was failing at it, being too close to it and everything else. So I said, okay, we're going to just do 1 hour class. I'll leave, but I need you to rename my company something better than what I had, which was Francke Creative. And you're like, what? Don't even ask. But I said, as long as it's better than that, and as long as my friend agrees, that my friend Ray agrees, then I'll take it. Carte blanche. I was done, emotionally fried. And they came back and they said Bright Orange Thread. And this was the time when I was busy learning the internet and it was a new thing. And almost every web design studio on the planet used a spider web as a logo. I mean, this is how long ago we're talking, right? And they're like, well, you can't do that. You can't just do what everyone else is doing, which is exactly what good marketing is, right? You got to find a way to stand out. So they came up with the idea of Bright Orange Thread, which connects to the fact that I have a Dutch heritage. And if you ever see the Dutch at the Olympics or at the World Cup, you're going to see a whole section of the stadium in orange. And the thread was that kind of linking cobweb type thing. They were connecting the dots on. And it's been fun ever since. People give me orange stuff all the time. I sew my business cards. I'm out of those. My logo, all I did was I found some ad in some fashion magazine, 1,000 free labels for the back of your shirt that gets stuck in the back of your shirt all the time. I just typed that I wanted an orange and gave them the name And that was my logo. Boom. So Bright Orange Thread. It's been fun and easy ever since.
Well, that explains why you have such a great company name. But tell me about how that educational background, that design background, led you to becoming a CEO and actually opening your own business in the first place.
I was always going there. I took Accounting 101, probably in '88 with my friend Sheetal. I think the only thing I learned from that class, it was basically a weed out class for business majors, was hire an accountant and hire a bookkeeper, stay out of the books. That's the thing. The one thing I learned from a business class for me. Because
know what you know, know what you don't know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And all that double, I mean, it's just so, I always knew I was going there. So it was just part of it. And then the day I started teaching, I opened my studio as a half-man studio, right? Biology professor teaches 2 classes and goes off into the lab. Well, I taught my 3 classes and I went back home and started designing and so forth. So that was always just going to happen.
So now that we have this context in place, let's turn to your work about group learning, and more specifically, group learning for business owners and business leaders. And some folks will know these groups as masterminds, peer groups. They have all sorts of different names. We're by and large talking about the same thing, realizing that each group brings its own identity and its own kind of structure, if you will. Hendrik-Jan, the question is this: why do you embrace these group learning environments as an avenue for business growth and success?
I think for a certain set of people, and I'm one of them because I've been in them for many, many years now, since 2007 or 8, they provide an environment for you to stop and think about your business instead of getting lost in your business, working in. I mean, you literally show up and you're blocked away from the world. You're blocked away from your company and you can't answer emails and you can't write all that stuff. And you can focus on thinking about your business. So, and they offer you a chance to bring your issues. What are you struggling with this month or the past quarter that you want the power of the group to talk about? You have a diversity of perspectives that people will share. And it's uncanny how often you're listening to someone else process their challenge. They're struggling with an employee. They're struggling with profitability. They're struggling with finding a new facility to move operations to. How much you can learn, even though it's not your moment right now. It's not your issue, but you can learn from what they're going through. And that all those little lessons are just phenomenal. I often say that I got my master's in business administration, right? My MBA, I often feel like I got that from my mastermind groups of just all the little education lessons I've gotten from it. Mm-hmm.
I'm in full agreement with you about the utility of peer groups. I find them professionally rewarding as well as personally rewarding because there's no other better group of empathizers than your peers. So it really helps to just be a sanity check or sometimes a reality check. When you need one, you need to adjust a little bit. And one of my favorite things to do from them, and listeners have heard me say this before, but learning from other people's mistakes is a wonderful opportunity. Because you've been involved in these business learning groups or peer groups for such a long time, I won't ask you to recommend one group over another, but I would ask you to tell us about which group had the most profound impact on the development of your business's success, both as a business itself and your personal growth as a business leader.
It's impossible to pick one. I've been a part of 2 significantly. One was run by Vistage, which is a corporate version of it all. That really helped me on the strategic side, the operations side. A few of the folks in there helped me with hiring. They helped me with certain kinds of financial tools to really help me move forward, as well as just strategic decision-making kind of things, really important for. And I really got so much out of that group, but I had grown, I had employees, and dealing with employees and being a leader, those things were not as front and center for that group's. Like there weren't a lot of challenges for me to learn from others with. People weren't talking about that very often because there were a lot of solopreneur consultants in that group. So I switched to another group run by Stan Diver. Very different vibe to it. I mean, still a mastermind group, very differently done. And a different set of people in the group, much more diverse in terms of types of businesses, the roles people play in those businesses, as well as gender diversity was significantly different. I left kind of the white male dominated group into a much more mixed group, which is very phenomenal because that diversity of perspectives was really helpful. And considering how many of my employees have been females over the years. That was just significant to sit in that room with 3 other women business owners and how they think about things and so on. So both very fundamental in different ways to how we've grown, how I've grown as a business owner and leader. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
You run at least 2 mastermind groups.
Mm-hmm.
The Roundtable via the Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce, of which we are all members, and this podcast is a partner. And you also run a group called the Ascend Group. And these 2 groups bring together different business leaders to learn from each other and to grow with each other. And given what you shared so far, I expect that these 2 groups will have different focus, different structure, different emphasis. But tell us how these 2 groups differ, really. Kind of, we know they're masterminds. What separates the 2 from each other?
The Roundtable from Southern Chester County is really a group and the chamber's full of the younger starting up type businesses. And there's almost no consultants in that group. It's just they're business owners. They're working in the business. They're working on the business. They're probably 1 to 2 years into their journey as starting a business. Maybe even a little bit more, but I often think about the definition being under 5 years of experience, and all kinds of things from catering to accounting and so on. So, and we meet for 2 hours on a Friday, one Friday morning a month, and we share. I sort of set up little exercises. Thought exercise is really the best way to call it. 5 minutes of homework, walk in, be prepared, and share kind of thing. The Ascend group is much more targeted for consultants or leaders of companies with 20 or more employees, people with 10 years experience in a particular area of the field in consulting or the business itself. There's a lot more business vocabulary thrown around in that group. And, I fake it when they start talking about EBITDA and some of those other things like earnings before interest, something and something, but I can rely on someone in the group to help me get caught up in certain ways in those aspects. But yeah, bigger business vocabulary in there. So it has they both have different tones, but in the end, I think one of the big satisfactions is exactly the same for both groups. Walking into an atmosphere where people understand you, where your significant others don't understand you as well, where you can talk about issues without the pressure of like, oh, is this going to be risky for us? Does this mean we're going to have to sell the house? Right? None of that, safe discussions that allow people to share and vent and get a backbone and so forth. So it really does help them. Both the end result, the ROI of both is sort of the same, right? People helping each other move their companies forward.
And time is so important for members of groups like that because they're all entrepreneurs. They're all being pulled in a million different directions. And that time in the peer group is a time to focus and really be there and truly work on their business. So for group learning to bear fruit in the most efficient way possible for its members, like you were saying, the conversations require structure and curation. So 2 questions on that for you. Why is structure so important for these groups, in your opinion? And then how much does the philosophy of the group facilitator affect the tone, focus, and drive of the cohort? Sometimes when you're trying to measure a peer group and if you should participate in it or not, you might look at the facilitator, and other times you look at the members. And how do you analyze that, and how do you keep it going and keep it vibrant for the members?
Mm-hmm. Keeping it vibrant, starting with the last part first. I'll devise a little bit of homework so that we can have a fruitful discussion. It's amazing how 10 minutes of preparation for a 1 hour meeting can make a 1 hour meeting feel like a half day seminar, right? Whereas if you don't prepare for the meeting, so it's the same thing for us, for both groups. So for example, for the Roundtable, there's this idea of one-way doors and two-way doors for your decision. A one-way door decision is one you cannot reverse. I'm going to pick up the company and move to Seattle. That's a heck of a lot of work. You're very unlikely to reverse that. But, we're going to, we're going to lease space in the neighborhood. That might be more of a two-way door. So we define those things. And I just asked people to watch this is from Jeff Bezos of Amazon, right? And so I set up an exercise like that, give them a little homework, and then we come in and talk, what are the one-way decisions you've made in the last year? What are the two-way decisions? And just by each member sharing They get a lot of insight into what different people consider irreversible and what some people consider reversible. And that can open your mind. Oh, I would have never thought that as two-way, but maybe you're right. Maybe I don't have to plan this out to the nth degree to make this decision. I can just make a decision and back out of it. So that's one part of structure, which also answers the last question. But the other part of structure is just from day one, coming in, having an agenda, and then for each part of the agenda, how are we going to process this? How are we going to handle this part of the agenda? So for example, we help each other process challenges. So that means the person who has a challenge will describe it for 5 minutes. Then everyone else can ask questions, and then everyone can make recommendations. And I'll articulate that process ahead of time, and then as we do it. And that way people know what to expect. By just providing the tiniest bit of guardrails, they're all smart people. They're all energetic people. They all want to help. They're truly motivated to help each other. So with the tiniest bit of guardrails, they just float right along with it. And quite often they honestly do a good job breaking the guardrails at the right time too. I mean, it's kind of interesting how that happens. Now, sometimes people want to rush to recommendation. They think they got it nailed, and that's fine. We just ask you to hold. So every so often I do kind of have to say, excuse me, I think that's a question veiled as a recommendation. And, that's kind of a joke among the groups because it happens a few times. And the newbies will often hear it a time or two, and then it just takes care of itself. I'm just trying to make sure. Another part of it too is there's the busy talkers. The groups need kind of both sets of people ready to jump right in, share some information, share some ideas. And then you also need the people at the end, the people listening to one by one, someone who can almost summarize everything and stitch it all together and give it. So I have to create room for both people to talk. So I'm thankful for the people who jump in to talk quickly and earnestly, but then I sort of ask them to take a step back so the quieter folks, the ones that step back, also can have a voice. And I make that very clear that I want everyone to almost have an equal voice throughout the morning.
So let's stay with the group dynamics for a moment there. And, certainly a group conversation can go off the rails for any number of reasons. Perhaps a leader's airing their business challenges and they get into unproductive areas. How do you go about returning that leader in the wider conversation to a constructive vein? You kind of touched on it a little bit in your previous answer, but can you just unpack that a little bit more for us?
Well, as a facilitator, I probably spend a lot less time thinking about ideas and questions and solutions than the members of the group. I'm more listening for, are questions and recommendations on track, right? Are they for what the person asked for? So, but every so often the group can start to unpack it in a very interesting way. And I'll just ask for a pause and say, look, I think that so-and-so asked for X, but I really sense that we're talking about M, and how do we, and I'll ask the person with the challenge, is that what you want to do? You want to stay with what you came here for? Or is this really interesting to you, this new idea, these new thoughts that are coming out, and do you want to explore that more? And then they ask for what they want, and then off we go again. And I think the participants, right. I mean, they were so busy, they're not paying attention the same way a facilitator would. Like I said, as a facilitator, I'm not always as able to make great recommendations because I'm more listening and guiding. And it's just about a few gentle touches here and there. Yeah. But I need to remind myself of this actually, but gentle touches, right? I call it compassionate authority. It's a term I picked up from a podcast about some leader and how, and her point was, if you're going to interrupt, do so with compassionate authority. You don't need to apologize for it. You just need to give a good reason for it. And everyone gets right on board. So yeah, compassionate authority. I've got to remember that a little more.
That's a great phrase.
That makes perfect sense. And it also helps to, encourage more people to participate. And you get those ideas even from the introverted folks and the folks that don't normally, be the first to raise their hand in class. So that's wonderful. that brings me to my next question. You were born in the Netherlands to Dutch parents, and you moved to America when you were just a young boy. So we understand you still return regularly to the Netherlands to visit your family, and so you have that Dutch perspective still. And I'm wondering, how does your Dutch background influence your approach to business, and does it have anything to do with that inclusivity?
In that regard, I feel incredibly American. I don't feel particularly Dutch. I started a business. Not many of, I don't know any family members that have done particularly that. I don't think that's as easy in the Netherlands to just start a business and launch it. I don't know for sure, but I just feel like that part of my story is quintessentially American. I think the Dutchness that I bring is, the Dutch are known for being very direct. I can be pretty direct. That's why compassionate authority is important to me, right? You notice me saying I have to remember it. Because I can just say it like I see it. And that can be a bit brutal sometimes. But I think once people get used to me a little bit on that front, it's no big deal. They just realize where it's coming from. But yeah, being compassionate, remembering where the other person is at things is really, a big deal for me. So the other side of things, I'm just not so sure. Yes, I go back, but it's for family. It's for family, and I'm not exploring it in the same kind of way. I mean, there's many systematic things I really admire about how the Dutch do things with water, with farming, and bikes and the bike paths. I mean, that stuff is phenomenal over there. But I don't have a lesson that brings me into business so well. Yeah. Oddly enough.
So mastermind groups regularly meet once a month, twice a month, something like that, all kind of depending on the group. And it's typically for at least an hour and sometimes two, as you shared about your own group that you're leading. So that's a lot of time over the course of a 12-month period. And I guess what I'm wondering is pretend I'm a cynical business leader wondering about the ROI for attending a group. How do you define ROI, and how do you do that with group members who are coming with their own definitions? How do you present? Here's an ROI that you might care about. Here's how the group can deliver value. What does that look like? How do you walk through that?
In the initial stages, if I'm talking to a prospect, I might more talk about coming to these meetings will give you insights that will allow you to make better decisions, whether it's a daily, a month, whether it's something that has a repercussion for the day, for the week, for the month, for the quarter. I think you will come here and get some ideas to help you make better decisions. So the stress of that is not all on you, and you don't feel like is there not some other thing I could have thought of to do this better? You won't suffer from that. The long-term ROI is probably just more the confidence that you build, that people walk around with, afterwards, after a year of being a part of something, after 5 years of being a part of something. It just gives you so much more confidence in your decision-making process that, I would think there's no ROI that's very measurable, right? I mean, that's just really hard. You're still in business. I've seen people join groups and realize business ownership is not for them. They're a 6-month participant. And for the group, that's almost a bad thing. Like you didn't really get their contribution, but thankfully they figured out what they wanted, and that's really helpful to them. And maybe they got there faster. They probably got there faster by listening to all these things going around the room. Yeah.
We've heard you talk a lot about profit and joy, not as a single phrase, not profit and joy separately, but profit and joy. That's an important nuance, I suspect. So would you unpack why you emphasize the phrase profit and joy?
We all should have fun while we earn our living. It's really that simple. I want my employees to have a good salary, and I want them to enjoy coming to work. I think of that phrase, if your employees don't like showing up at work on Mondays, that's your problem, Mr. Boss. I think that this so resonates with me. And I think for my clients, it's the same idea, right? I mean, why not help them bring more clients that they enjoy working with, the kind of work they want to do, versus less of what they don't want? It just makes so much sense. And I don't think we should be I think some people struggle with the two words slammed together, right? Really? Are they the same thing? No, but they certainly need to work together for us to have a good life.
Yeah, I like that. Profit and joy. Let's go back to the Ascend group. We talked about that briefly at the start of this conversation, and that's a peer group that you've organized with a couple of our Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce colleagues, fellow members, Bob Cox of Build High Performing Human Capital, and Dave Whitwell of Whitwell CFO. Side note: Bob was on the podcast in a previous episode, so we'll include a link to his conversation in the show notes for this over at startlocal.co. But the question then is this: what's the focus of the Ascend group? You touched on that. Talk to us a little bit more. And are you looking for members of that group? Are you actively growing? Are you at full capacity? Tell us about when you meet, how you meet, all the kinds of things. Do a little sales pitch for it, if you would.
Oh, okay. Well, both groups are looking for members. Roundtable's Friday, second Friday of the month. Friday mornings, 8 to 10-ish, something like that. The Ascend group is the third Wednesday of the month, 7:30 to 11:30 a.m. Bob, Dave, and I participated in one of my other earlier mastermind experiences. We became friends outside of that. I think we've become very influential in each other's business in some extra ways beyond that group. And it's been absolutely fun to set this up with them and get things going. And we're rotating facilitation. So Bob does a month, Dave does a month. That way we can each be members, right? 1 month you're tuned in one way, the other 2 months you're tuned in the other way. And so on. We are looking for more members for both groups for Ascend. Again, those businesses with, either you're a consultant working with companies, 20 or more people, or you run a business of that size as the CEO, the leader of it, the organizer, that kind of thing. And what's really cool is just, I'll come up with some ideas for that group discussion type thing as the exercise part. And Bob and Dave just do some very different things. I mean, Dave Whitwell, CFO, right? He's brought in the fact that we should all have KPIs. I'm like, okay, but then I want everyone to have a KPI that shows they're finding joy in the company, right?
I love it.
Like my one KPI is I limit myself to 12 clients. That helps me find joy. And it also gives me some sense of my revenue confidence and things like that. I have one KPI that does both, but that's Dave Whitwell for you. He wants some numbers, financial health. CFOs, of course, worried about that. And Bob Cox, building high-performing human capital. How do you think about team members? How do you think about relationships with clients? And he's bringing that kind of thinking there. He did an exercise for the group around uncertainty, right? And getting people to tap around their anxiety in the markets, in the atmosphere, and what that might do. So again, just different folks, different strokes, but we all work together in some good ways, I think.
Hendrik-Jan, we can't finish an interview with you and not ask about your love for soccer. Liam is a big soccer fan as well. And I'd like to know what parallels you see between doing a team sport like soccer, mastermind groups, and business in general. And by the way, you also have to tell us what team you like at the risk of upsetting Liam here at the end of the podcast.
Won't upset me.
The parallels I see are in coaching, right? The coaching players and facilitating a discussion. It's kind of funny. I believe in ending all the mastermind groups with, so what are your takeaways from today? I do the same thing at the end of practice. What's your takeaway from today? And each player comes up with a different thing that they really focused on or noticed. Oh, okay, coach, right. I got to get on my left foot better. There's so many parallels there in terms of those things. My favorite teams, Manchester United, which has been very hard for a long time now. What's that?
Is it okay? Maybe you might get a little upset.
Are you Liverpool?
No. I'm an Arsenal fan.
Arsenal fan. Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, we just got you 2-0 not too long ago.
I'm sorry.
What's your status in the league? That's happening.
What's your league table rank?
For third.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, folks out there in listener land who don't care at all. My apologies.
Go ahead. It's 2 spots.
That's some serious inside soccer there, folks. Inside soccer.
And then I'm a big time fan of the U.S. women's national team ever since they won in '99. My daughter grew up playing soccer, and so that became just a natural thing to start following, and now I'm just completely hooked. And then follow the Washington Spirit, now a recent team I've picked up. Driving down DC is just a little bit much for a soccer game, but the style of play they've got going right now, Lacey Santos, Trini Rodman, Hal Hirschfeld, I just think is Tara Rudd. I just think there's some phenomenal things going on in that club.
Yeah, the women's game globally has really, really, really come on in recent years. And it's just been fantastic to watch, just the level of skill and talent, and seeing the stadiums get more crowded and busier and more sellout crowds. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the U.S. women's team is night and day above the men's team in terms of overall performance. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. It's just phenomenal to watch. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, for the non-sports fans, or more specifically non-soccer fans, we're going to get back to our regular programming schedule. Hendrik-Jan, you've been with these different learning groups for so many years. You've been involved with the Chamber for so long. You know a lot of businesses in and around our area. You know a lot of nonprofits in and around our corner of the world. Can you name a local business or nonprofit that more folks should know about?
I have a soft spot for Taste Local Eats. It's a younger business. No, not young anymore. I've been using them for years. They'll make a gift basket out of all the local stores and the teas from Mrs. Robinson, all kinds of different things, and they put together a package for you that you can gift from business to business kind of thing. And so they use what is that? I think it's crinkle. I think it actually they make mine out of all orange crinkle and stuff like that. And they had an icing put on a Rice Krispie treat with my logo printed on it. It's just a really nice idea about being local. And I'd love for her to just grow and be huge and so forth. They also have that Taste Kennett Square food tour, which is really cool. So I really like Taste Local Eats. And then New London Counseling Center over there in New London, how they are providing counseling for all streets, but they also have these scholarships, right? They're actively raising money so they can offer scholarships so that people can make a partial payment or completely free, get the help that they need to think through some issues, to deal with things, difficult moments in their life and so forth. So they have a wonderful walk coming up in May. That's at, the name's totally escaped me, the park over there in,
Well, we can definitely just link to their website over at startlocals.co. And you're the second guest that we've had on that has sung the praises of the New London Counseling Center. Jason with Crystal Clean Cans gave them a big shout out for many of the same things that you're talking about. So I'm delighted to hear that. And as I said, we'll include a link to them over on the show notes at startlocal.co. And thank you for Taste Local Eats. I'm going to have to check them out. I love that idea, and I've not heard of them. So thank you for coming on the show for no other reason than that alone, Hendrik-Jan. I appreciate your time here.
Are you hiring at Bright Orange Thread? And if so, where can folks learn what positions you need filled?
At the very moment, we are not hiring, but I do hire at least once a year an intern and then sometimes a writer. I think my employees often, they can outgrow Bright Orange Thread in 2 to 4 years, depending on the challenges they faced in terms of account management and marketing and so forth. So, and there's a careers page on the website, so they can visit that and look at those experiences. We also have a job shadowing experience. So if there's a young person who's interested in marketing and wants to know what a remote marketing agency how that day works, they can attend 3 different virtual meetings with us and see how it goes.
That's really interesting. Is that on your website as well?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Through your leadership with these groups and through the chamber again, you're giving a lot to our local business community. And I'm wondering, how can our business community support your business, Bright Orange Thread?
Well, first off, I'd like them to help the 2 groups. If there's both groups could easily use 4 more members, and that wouldn't be a problem. We're humming along great, but turnover will happen, and diversity is always very much welcomed. So someone who's willing to learn about, stop and think about their business is really critical. And for Bright Orange Thread, if you feel you're practicing a random act of marketing and you'd like to talk to me, happy to chat with you. If I can't help you, I know some people who probably can.
Hendrik-Jan Francke, owner of Bright Orange Thread. Where can folks learn more about your business, more about the Ascend Group, and more about the Roundtable through the Chamber?
Hopefully we'll put links in the show notes.
Absolutely, we will.
But yeah, if you Google Bright Orange Thread, you find Bright Orange Thread. The Ascend Group, we've not done, it's brand new. We don't have a lot of search engine optimization for its brand name on there. I guess go to my website, find my email, hfranca@brightorangethread.com or info@brightorangethread.com. And the Roundtable should be, if you Google S4Cs, SCC, CC, and Roundtable, you should find that page pretty easily, I would think. Again, if you're interested in that I do the preliminary meeting with the possible members ahead of time. So, yeah.
Hendrik-Jan, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciated getting to know you a little bit better here on this call and finding out more about these peer groups that you're running. So that was really, really excellent information. So I appreciate that. Thank you also to my co-host Liam Dempsey. I'm Eric Goodmanson. The Start Local podcast is published every 2 weeks. We invite you to subscribe to Start Local using your favorite podcast app or ask your smart speaker to play the Start Local podcast. You can visit our website at startlocal.co for show notes, including links mentioned on this show and summaries of past episodes. We hope you join us for the next episode. Thank you for listening.